I am recording this video today to talk to you about one of the ghosts of my past. I have, in fact, several ghosts of my past, things that I've done that I regret, that I used to do, that are no longer a part of me, and I feel like it is perhaps time to start talking about some of these things. You see, I have changed over time, become an entirely different person, and now I have this online persona where I talk to you a lot about my thoughts and feelings, and there are just some things that I am particularly uncomfortable with talking about, that now I feel like maybe it is time to start talking about these things. And one of them that we're going to talk about today is radicalization and racism and an incident that I had with it in the past. So this happened around 15 years ago. I was a teenager at the time, and basically I was a miserable person. I had low self-esteem. I had been abused a lot in school. I couldn't find a job. I didn't feel like I had a future or a place in the world. I was at a very dark point in my life, and I couldn't see a way forward for me. But I did find an outlet in online communities. I used to spend my time talking to people, venting my frustrations, and writing poetry was another thing that I did at that time. And being a part of these communities, I encountered people who started to lure me towards certain ideologies and online communities. I was essentially being preyed upon by people who were trying to radicalize me, and that is something that I have only really wrapped my head around looking back at it retrospectively. It didn't feel like that at the time, but I believe that was what was happening. This just started in chat rooms and online forums. I'd slowly be introduced to these racist ideas, and I was channeling my own negativity into this. And for a short period of time, I started recycling their language and using their rhetorics and basically directing my angers and frustrations onto other people of different ethnicity. And this is really ugly to say, to look back and think that I fell into that, but it is something that happened. Now, I well and truly condemn anything that I ever said at this point in my life when I was a part of this community. It was a brief and short period. I think maybe no more than a matter of weeks to a month that I found myself in this circle. Unfortunately, it never manifested into anything physical or even verbal in the real world. When it came to that, I never felt like I wanted to say anything to anyone in real life, but behind the confines of my computer screen where I felt safe, I did engage with this kind of stuff for a period of time. And I am truly sorry to anyone who's ever been hurt by these ideologies and racism. It is a dark thing, and I look back on it and I just feel disgusted with myself that I was ever involved in this. Now, this video is about finding my way out of racism. I had found myself in a situation where I was being exposed to these racist ideas and I was kind of going along with them out of my own frustration and anger and the fact that I was being a part of a community by doing so. And then I started to read up on their ideology, ideas of eugenics and superior race, and I started to ask questions about things that I didn't understand and that I thought weren't quite right. And this is where things started to turn, because as I were to prod at the holes in some of the stories that were being fed to me, I was actually met with hate directed back towards me. For example, genetics and diversity. Some of these scientific things are used to prop up racist arguments, but it depends on what perspective you look at these. And so in nature, diversity is strength. We have an incredibly diverse amount of life, and it is the fact that it is so diverse that usually is why things actually flourish and happen in the world. And so when I would ask questions about things like this, all of a sudden hate would be directed towards me. I would get called a race traitor or other slurs along those lines, and I would even find that my questions that I were asking them were getting deleted, or I was asking them in a chat room and I was getting kicked out as a response. And then I just kind of left it thinking it was all a bunch of nonsense, like these, who are these people? And I just left. Now, in my heart of hearts, I truly believe I don't have a racist bone in my body, and what I got caught up with was just my misery and my negativity manifesting into something awful, which I think can potentially happen to anyone. But not long after this, I saw a movie that really helped me get through this, which was American History X. I highly recommend this to anyone who hasn't seen this movie. It tackles racism and extremism and radicalization straight on, and it is a very powerful movie, and it moved me deeply. And it cleared everything up that I had been through and allowed me to see what had happened to myself in some respect. And the outcome of that was that people were just people, and the ethnicity was no crime or no place for hate to be directed. In fact, I believe that diversity is something we should all be celebrating with one another. But now, as someone who is deeply reflective, and I'm very interested in biases and the power of perspectives and examining oneself, I believe this is the first moment where I really started to turn the mirror on myself and start to think about the sorts of thoughts and ideas that I could so easily be exposed to. Now, I want to talk to you about this topic and other topics soon as well, because they are hard to talk about. This is dark and painful for me, my past, and talking about it can help educate others, and especially young people like myself that were drawn into dark things like this. Teenagers can be especially vulnerable to social pressures and peer pressures they might not even be aware about. And it's a time in your life when you're trying to figure out who you are and what it is you want to do and what you want to be in life. And this can make you especially vulnerable. And certain people will want to steer, individuals in this situation and prey on them with these ideologies. And this is something you can actually see brought very vividly to life in the movie that I mentioned before, American History X. That is a big part of it. You'll see this dynamic of young people and then a couple of older people who are sort of brought into this ideology. But I was very lucky and fortunate that my involvement was very short-lived and very brief. And by sharing my story, I hope it can help others who may find themselves in a similar situation, or have maybe been in a similar situation, or maybe have seen someone else in a similar situation. Now, it feels very difficult to find the right note to end this video on, so what I'm going to do is put some reading material in the description box down below about radicalization and about racism if you want to look into this topic further. And what I will say is that life is a journey and people change, and you can change for the better. I believe that I have done that. This dark moment in my past is well and truly behind me, and it represents nothing of who I am today. So I want to end it on that note. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon with another one. Bye bye.